In Nietzsche's philosophy, the will to power refers to the fundamental driving force behind human behavior. It is characterized by a desire for increase in the exertion of one's capabilities. We see the will to power at work in the athlete trying to get stronger, the artist honing her skills, and in the suffering sick overcoming their ailments. We see it in the lion who seeks to be master of his territory, and likewise in the man that tries to increase his status and self-command. Life itself seeks to constantly overcome what came before, except in the last man, which we'll get into. The will to power is even built into our biology. For instance, testosterone and endorphins increase with victory. Fulfillment and happiness are almost always the result of progress. Some will argue with me here and say family or romance or art bring them joy. And this is true to some degree, but love, relationships, creativity, work, and everything else loses its zest when there's no progress and evolution therein. Without increases in power, all is stagnation. Life becomes dull and gray and sick, and this is a danger for the individual, but even more so for all of humanity. Quote, "What is good? All that heightens the feeling of power, the will to power, power itself in man. What is bad? All that proceeds from weakness. What is happiness? The feeling that power increases, that a resistance is overcome." Nietzsche. This statement encapsulates an essential core of Nietzsche's philosophy. Weakness leads to corruption and evil. Only strength promotes nobility and goodness. Look at your own life. When you are strong and courageous, you move forward. You overcome addictions and vices and actualize your potential. But when you live in weakness, your lower nature wins. You make excuses and stagnate and fall from integrity. As a result, corruption and resentment multiply and win. This is why to Nietzsche, and in my own philosophy, power is at the top of the hierarchy. All other values like family, compassion, happiness, integrity, and even wisdom are beneath it. There can be no true compassion, no true integrity, and no wisdom without the strength or power to exercise them. And furthermore, biologically, happiness is the result of progress, of increases in power. Hence, we should seek power first, rather than happiness or anything else. And to me, power looks like self-command, spiritual vitality, and building supreme prowess in life. It is not the weak version of control so many confuse it for, as we'll see in the next section. Chapter 2. The will to power is expressed differently by different types of individuals: the strong, the weak, and the very weak or exhausted. According to Nietzsche, the strong individuals seek to assert and express their strength. Like Alexander the Great, they are full of personal power and vitality and seek to discharge it in life. They are focused on self-overcoming and the realization of their potential. These higher types are rare today in the sea of mediocrity. There's a huge difference between those who seek glory and self-actualization and those who seek comfort. This comfort seeking represents the third and lowest type of person, the very weak, what Nietzsche called the last man. The last man no longer aspires beyond himself. His will is exhausted. He is the product of an exhausted age. And since there's no meaning to be found, he pursues a life of pleasure and ease. In essence, the last man is powerless, and he grows progressively weaker. Never able to overcome himself, he becomes a slave to vice, a victim of life rather than the hero of it. And hence, he seeks a world of perfect equality where his vulnerability isn't so exposed. He willingly trades freedoms for more comfort and safety. He ushers in a communist and socialist nation because he wants everyone equalized with him at the bottom. This is the recipe for the rise of the second and most malicious type of person, the weak, insecure, and power-hungry. In Nietzsche's view, the second type lacks the power and force of character to become a true higher man. So instead, they seek power over others as a means of compensating for their own inadequacies and insecurities. They resort to manipulation, exploitation, and other means to gain power and control. The unfortunate thing is, these men tend to rise to the top of corrupt hierarchies. They flourish in unnatural societies where the last man prevails. They are the cunning priests, the rich bankers, the corporate overlords, and the politicians that control the masses with lies. They create fear and conflict, and then sell security in exchange for more power. This inevitably leads to a shadow form of authoritarianism and a global slave state. The prevalence of this type of leader heralds the final stage of empire. We saw this play out in Soviet Russia, where the weak last men banded together in a slave revolution to put an authoritarian leader at the top. The most catastrophic suffering and dystopia ensued under the rule of Stalin. Tens of millions died. Unnatural hierarchy is where that which is inferior is on top. Natural hierarchy is where that which is truly superior rules. Those who do not believe in hierarchy do not believe in nature. They do not believe that some things are better than others, that some men are greater than others, and as such, seek to drag down the superior man to be equal to the lowest man. This is communism and Marxism in a nutshell, the world of the last man, where higher men are crushed and the cunning weak ones rule with an iron fist. Chapter 3. The will to meaning, the will to power, and the will to the profound. This is where we return to our more personal discourse on the will to power. In my theory, just as there's different manifestations of the will driving different types of life, there's also different manifestations of the will driving different types of experience. And there are a few philosophers that I align most with on this subject, namely Viktor Frankl, Nietzsche, and Joseph Campbell. Here, I will be combining all three of their philosophies in a way that makes sense to me. To start with, heavily distressed life seeks two things, survival and meaning. At least, that is what the strong types seek in terrible circumstances. We see this with Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, based off his experiences in the Nazi concentration camps, the most distressed places on earth. He slaved away under the most gruesome conditions, barefoot and starving through winters where many men died. Frankl noticed that the men who survived usually had a reason to live, something to fight for, even if it was just family back home or a sense of honor and human dignity. Those who survived found some way to make sense of their suffering. They found something to live for, while the nihilistic ones died in resigned misery. There is a natural instinct toward survival, but to survive the worst of times, we need to find meaning in the pain. We see this grasping for meaning in distressed populations the most, a search for some way to make sense of the wretchedness of life. Hence, they gravitate towards religion and faith. In many ways, the instinct towards meaning and survival is but the initial part of the will to power. Meaning gives you the strength to endure terrible circumstances, so that strength can be earned. Like the boxer suffering through hours of awful training because he wants to win the championship. Meaning and purpose is essential for higher men because the path to greatness is full of suffering. Quote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." Nietzsche. Viktor Frankl was a Nietzschean in many ways, and he quoted Nietzsche often in his books. I personally believe the will to meaning serves the will to power, and that increasing your power is the fastest way to discover deeper meaning. You'll never actualize your life purpose or even know it if you don't become your most badass version. Hence, when we live for the Übermensch, the symbol of power itself, suffering becomes more than meaningful. It becomes sacred. Beyond the will to meaning, the will to power manifests in two other ways and two other experiences in life. The will to conquer, i.e. self-overcoming, and number two, the will to the profound, or the Dianistic, what is essentially a profound experience of being alive. Both of these are intertwined for stronger types. The main instinct of healthy life is to increase your power and feeling of life. This is done through overcoming yourself. Again, we return to Nietzsche's quote, "What is happiness? The feeling that power increases, that a resistance is overcome." Overcoming a vice and rising into your most heroic day, for instance, fills you with positive feelings. Pushing your edge and going further in your training or work or relationships is literally required for positive states in mental health. We must grow, and when we do not grow, we start to perish. I wrote extensively about self-overcoming for 2 years in my book, and one huge takeaway I realized is that there's a few peak experiences of life. One is love. 2 is religious rapture and mystical experiences. 3 is going beyond yourself creatively or otherwise and giving from the depths of your heart and body. All three of these are intertwined intimately, and they bring ecstatic feelings of joy. But here's the thing. They must be earned through conquering resistance, overcoming weakness and fear, and going beyond yourself. That is where love, God, and genius are found, beyond the ego. Hence, self-overcoming, the will to power, is the ultimate quest of man, because it is that which transcends man. All higher types seek dominion over themselves and their environment, and this necessitates overcoming resistance constantly. The will to conquer must be alive and well in their blood. And contrary to what the weak ones say, this will to conquer brings them nearer to the divine. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, God will not have his work made manifest by cowards. And I would add, no coward will ever meet God and survive. And that brings us to the final piece of this discussion, the will to the profound, and what Nietzsche would call the Dionysic discharge of strength. This is the pinnacle and completion of the will to power. Quote, people say that what we're all seeking is a meaning for life. I don't think that's what we're really seeking. I think what we're seeking is an experience of being alive, so that our life experience on the purely physical plane will have resonance with our own innermost being and reality, so that we actually feel the rapture of being alive. Joseph Campbell. This statement seems to contradict Nietzsche at some parts, and definitely Viktor Frankl. But actually, I think Nietzsche and Frankl would agree with Campbell. This statement is true of a certain kind of life, the strong. Again, distressed life seeks meaning, but healthy life seeks to discharge its strength in glorious flourishing. It's like when you're making love, true love that is. Are you searching for the meaning of life? No, you've already found it. When I'm at my favorite festival, for instance, I'm surrounded by people I love, great music, and ecstatic dancing for days straight. There's no search for God or meaning in the way you think of it, because at that point, I know God. I know meaning. My entire being is lit up with the divine. The only quest is to have the most potent experience of being alive possible, to discharge my strength and rapture, movement, and dance that grips me all night. These experiences and others I have in nature, initiation, sex, fighting, endurance sports, and wild creative flow states instruct every other part of my life. These are the pagan, Dionysic experiences that trump all others. They are full of life, holiness, and terror. And I think it's the goal of existence, not to believe in God or gods, but to meet them face to face and bring their power down to earth. And this can only happen through the ritualistic discharge of strength. I believe this was the purpose of rites of passage and initiation in the old world, to access profound states of being alive that radically alter the human being, to go totally beyond yourself and commune with the other world through ecstatic celebration, pain, and prayers. I have studied yoga, esoteric Christianity, Tantra, and mysticism of all sorts, along with martial arts, philosophy, paganism, and the classical world. And I think this is the common thread hidden beneath all of it. It is a secret lost to most people in their experiences, and that is access to the profound by losing yourself in exertion and devotion. This is the lost secret of Dionysus and the ritual cults of initiation, and it has everything to do with power. Self-overcoming in the highest sense is about breaking out of the ego to reveal the great self or God that lives within. Hey, Wisdom Warriors. Did you know I have a men's retreat coming up this summer in Massachusetts? Well, if you want to kick it with the boys, have a blast, and do transformational work, you can apply below to learn more. Also, if you're ready to apply these ideas in a real, tangible way, there's a link below to talk to me one-on-one. Thanks for being here. Can't wait to keep the momentum rolling. You can watch more Nietzsche videos here. Peace.